Good morning, Facebook. We're back. It has been a while. We are actually going to be recording 2 episodes this morning to play catch up since we were out the past couple weeks. First, we are going to talk about toddler toys, what our kids are playing with right now at the ages that they're at. And then we're going to stay live, but we're going to cut the episode. And then we are going to start a new episode where we're going to be talking with an author named JJ Wenrich or Wenrich. I'm going to have to figure out how to pronounce that before we start recording that one.
We'll get it right.
We'll get it right, one way or the other. He has written a book called Teaching Your Kids to Buy Stocks, which is really interesting because me as an adult, I don't know how to buy stocks. So we're going to have a lot of questions for him. If you have questions for JJ in the second portion, which will start around 8:30, or if you have questions or tips in the first portion, drop a comment because I'm going to keep an eye on the Facebook live stream throughout the show. All right, bear with us. We're going to get started in about 60 seconds here. All right. All right.
Just posting about it myself.
Yeah, I'm going to smash that share button.
Teaching your kids to buy stocks, right?
Yes, I'm going to pull up the website, actually.
There you go.
Your kids to buy stocks.com. Oh, and that's weird. Let me try www. Okay, I'm just going to Google it.
Yeah, what was the website? The actual website is, I have it over here somewhere.
I thought that was the name of it. Shoot. Bear with us,
it's
guys.
teachingkidstobuystocks.com.
Teaching kids to buy stocks, not your kids.
Yep, definitely got that wrong.
Of course. All right. Live stream. Dun, dun, dun. I'm actually going to edit the teaching kids to buy stocks. Okay.
Yeah, I should probably change that myself.
Yeah. There we go. All right. Save. All right. Teaching.
There we go.
Kids.
Edited. We've got it.
Pull up the one. Here it is. teachingkidstobuystocks.com. Yep, JJ Wenrich. Awesome.
All right. Ready to roll when you are.
Okay. Oh, we should also bring up the Spotify news.
Mm-hmm.
2 little bits of news, which is really cool.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, one sec. One share. Oh, I need to share. Oh, jeez.
I was the sharer.
You were the
I'm the mystery sharer.
Uh-huh. All right. Sorry, guys. We're almost ready.
Hey, you're good.
Hey, we're a little rusty. We've been out of the studio for a couple weeks.
Yeah, just minor infections. No big deal.
Yeah. We'll talk all about it. And here we go. You're listening to Dadsplaining, a weekly chronicle of all the weirdest, messiest, grossest, and funniest parts of fatherhood, hosted by 2 first-time dads. I'm Jesse.
And I'm Brandon.
And for our first new episode in at least 2 weeks, we are going to be talking about toddler toys. What the Hey, I'm rusty. It's okay. We are going to be talking about toddler toys, the toys that our kids are playing with, the ones they're crazy about, and the ones that were either a waste of money or are just plain annoying. On a personal note, this is our 50th full-length episode.
Hey, all right.
Yeah, pretty exciting stuff. For all the listeners who have been with us from the beginning, we could not have done this without you guys. We love and appreciate you. And for all the ones that have joined along the way, we're glad that you're with us. We've also got some pretty cool news to share. We had to kind of keep this under wraps for a couple of weeks, but we got an email a few weeks ago from a representative of Spotify Canada, believe it or not. Two podcasters from Atlanta caught the attention of Spotify in Canada, go figure. They have featured us on a new comedy site for Spotify comedy podcasts called, and I apologize if my grandmother's watching, I'm going to swear, www.poddamnthat'sfunny.com. Pretty kind of clever pun there. It's a hosting site to introduce you to new and fun comedy podcasts. And under the parenting tab, we are one of just 3 parenting podcasts featured there. I mean, that kind of blew us away when we saw that. It was pretty exciting.
Yeah, and the only dad-themed podcast out there. So obviously great work on the mom podcasts. I mean, we're not competing whatsoever. I listened to actually one of them because they actually had a pretty hilarious episode on there. So definitely check it out and continue to stay engaged with us. We appreciate you, Canadian fans.
Exactly. And while we're talking about Spotify, I hopped onto the Spotify app the other day and I realized that Dadsplaining is the number 1 or number 2, depending on your phone, result when you search for fatherhood under podcasts.
We're getting there, fam.
Yeah, exactly. I guess we're the little tiny podcast that could, and people are listening. So we're grateful for that.
Yeah. So listen to us on Spotify, any other place you get your podcasts. We are there as well. Mm-hmm. And then continue to engage with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Dadsplaining Podcast. You can follow all of our videos on Facebook Live. We were actually just talking about trying to get some streaming options set up on Twitter via Periscope, which I was just reminded is still a thing. It felt like Periscope was like a hot thing for literally a minute, like a year ago or 3 years ago, and then everyone just kind of moved on. But apparently it's still there, so we're going to go check that out too. We love engaging with you guys. We love giving you the video so you can see our beautiful shining faces.
Hey, way to throw in the social plugs there. That was completely
beautiful
unscripted. I love that. So it has been a couple of weeks, and I've got lots to share about why. But first, Brandon, I'd love to hear how Noah is doing.
Hey, we're doing A-okay. I mean, everything's kind of just normal on the kid front, I guess you could say. We've been dealing with some stuff ourselves. I talked a little bit about some of my health concerns that have been going on. Great news is that everything's looking good on my end.
Great.
Everybody's happy. Everybody's looking good. No concerns at this time. And then, we did have some hurricanes over the last weekend over in the coast. We live in Georgia and Florida and South Carolina, North Carolina. In the states here, we're all kind of impacted to varying degrees. With a hurricane, my wife works in emergency response, so she's been working like crazy this past week. She was working, 4 days straight, 12-hour plus shifts, and, just doing a great job. So, hats off to her. She did a great job. And, me and the little guy got to hang out a little bit extra. I got to do the drop-offs, the pickups, the snacks and the dinners and the bath times. It's a little fun just to kind of do that every now and then. And I'm sure like single parents are like rolling their eyes heavily at me. I mean, like, look, I was a single parent for a couple of days. But, it's just kind of nice to, I don't know, you get that engagement one-on-one. You're like the only resource and you're just kind of fending for yourself. But it's nice to know that you just kind of fall into that rhythm and you can kind of get things taken care of and everything actually goes out okay. And I know that you probably have a similar story to tell, wrapped in with your piece about how, your wife probably had to take care of some of the duties solo and leaning on family and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm just excited to hear all about Jesse's saga, so we'll just kick it over to him.
Absolutely. So before I do, as part of Austin's job with the hurricane response and preparedness, is part of her job erasing the Sharpie marks off of the forecast maps?
You can't get rid of those Sharpies. That's why they use them. But
they're permanent, whether or not they're accurate.
If you're interested, political or not, I just want to say that the Sharpie memes are actually quite hilarious. So I would go out there and look at several of them. They're just so much fun.
Oh yeah. Okay. So I'll dig in very briefly to why we did not have a new episode last week. I want to say last Thursday, my son David, who is approaching 22. Let's see, he is 22 months old. He had a stomach bug. He transferred that virus over to me, and although it affected his stomach, it went straight to my brainstem. So Saturday night around 11 o'clock, I had the worst migraine of my life. I have never been in this much pain, to be honest with you. Yeah. 2 a.m., I can't move my neck also. So my wife says, this looks like meningitis. Let's go to the ER. So 2 a.m., David's asleep. We have to wake him up, load him up in the car seat. We thought about, as parents, you're like, oh, he's asleep. Can we leave him?
Right. Yeah.
But you never know how long an ER visit is going to take.
Yeah. Hours.
And exactly. So we buckle him up. We drive down to the local hospital, and after 30 minutes of waiting in the emergency room, I get taken back. They give me a CAT scan, a lumbar puncture. I've got IVs sticking out of all my arms. Finally, they say, okay, you've got viral meningitis. That's something that has never happened to me before.
No kidding.
It's so hard to explain because it's not just one disease, meningitis. It can be any number of viruses when it's the viral kind that affects your brainstem, and basically it just causes inflammation in your brain. And that's why my head was pounding, was because my brain was growing and there was nowhere for it to grow.
Oh, it's nice your brain finally grew a little bit. Hey,
that's why I'm a little smarter in this episode.
Right.
Maybe not. So I was on bed rest for 5 straight days. I had pounding headaches and nausea for 3 of those days.
Oh my God.
I was on some pretty heavy painkillers, ibuprofen, Percocet, and some anti-nausea pills. So that was the fun part. The not so fun part was literally everything else.
Right.
And shout out to the supporting parents in those situations. My wife, of course, had to drive me to the hospital, wait with me there. Eventually, I sent her home because there was nothing she could do, and David needed to go back to bed.
Yeah.
But then she stayed home with me all week. She just worked from home because I couldn't get out of bed.
Right.
Not only that, but she was the only parent who could touch the child. We didn't want to transfer my virus back over to him and repeat that cycle.
Yeah.
So, she's used to doing all of the morning duty and a lot of the afternoon and evening stuff as well, but she was having to handle all of it for 5 straight days. So, hats off to my wife, and to any parent who is in that situation. When one parent is down for the count, it's rough. It's rough for the parent who's sick, obviously, but it's very rough also on the other parent. And that sometimes I think that kind of gets lost in the mix. So, big tip of the hat to all you parents who have to play supporting roles, and kind of pick up the slack there. But I'm glad to say that I am 100% better now. I do not feel any of the headaches or anything anymore. Obviously, I'm back at work. I'm excited to be back in the saddle with the Dadsplaining podcast. And a little tip there also: viral meningitis can be spread only through fluids. That's how I know I got it from David, probably from changing his diaper. But that's something, if you've got a friend who came down with viral meningitis, obviously let them stay home and rest and don't try and catch it from them. But unless they're sneezing on you or, you're making out with them or something like that, you're probably not going to get that. And even then, once you get the virus, it's only a small percent of people who get meningitis. So 0 stars, would not recommend, but
don't make out with Jesse. Got it. Got it.
Do your best. So, on to this week's topic. Today, we're going to be talking about the toys that our kids love and the toys that sometimes we hate just a tiny little bit. We were kind of going over our inventory this morning before we started the episode, and Brandon and I realized that we actually have a lot of the same toys, but we've also got some individual ones that we'll recommend and ones that we won't recommend. So, Brandon, I'm going to kick it over to you. What is at the top of your list?
So I definitely feel like it varies as the age goes along, and we were just kind of discussing, like, I was even having a little bit of trouble remembering some of the infant toys that we maybe played with, classics like teething toys. I've seen a lot of kids with like the little banana, and we really, Noah, my son, really liked that, where he just kind of chomps on it. It's got like a little toothbrush kind of a component scrubber thing on the end of it, and they just kind of gnaw on it.
Yeah.
Or the Sophie the giraffe is like a really popular toy. It's literally just a little like a plastic giraffe they can just bite on, and it squeaks. And then something else that was kind of similar was what we called a Zolly. It looks like as an adult, you would think it just looks like a kind of like a honey stick, if you know what I'm talking about. It's got that kind of like little top piece to it that looks like it's got a little bit of grooving in it, but it's just another thing they bite on and they nom on, and it's rubber with plastic, and they just can chew the heck out of it.
There's nothing inside, and there's no actual honey or anything inside it.
No, it's really just like a hard toy for them to bite the heck out of. And that's kind of all they really liked at that point. But in terms of, kind of moving into the phase where your kids are sitting up and rolling over and can maybe even crawl or move around a little bit, definitely anything of the push toy variety tops the list. And still to this day, we're 18 months now, and honestly, my son has been loving and enjoying and just continuing to enjoy even more any kind of a push toy ever since he could, get to that point where he could pull himself up. And even if they don't walk, push toys, that's exactly what they're for. It helps them learn to walk because they don't know how to, but they hold on to something, hence the push toy. So a couple of different options. There has been one that I believe is like a VTech toy that is kind of like a tripod almost-esque push toy, and it's got like a little interactive thing on the front of it, so it's like meant to grow with them, where you can like take off the noise making stuff that has like lots of different buttons, and ours looks like a little farmhouse kind of a setting. And so it's got like a sun, and it's got a barn, and you can open the door, and then you can see the animals inside of it, and it's got some numbers that you can punch, just like a mix mash of little buttons and noise things, and they can play with that just on its own on the floor when they can't walk or crawl or stand even. And then when they can pull themselves up, you can put that onto the pushing kind of apparatus, and they stand behind it, and they have their hands on the bar, and they just move around the house with it. And it's a lot of fun because it makes noise while they're pushing it, and then they get excited about that. And my son just loves anything he can do to move around the house.
Yeah.
And so those are really cool if you get something like that can kind of, again, grow with them. And that's kind of going to be one of my main themes as well, is like any kind of a toy that they can grow with is super amazing as a parent, because you invest once and then you use it for months and months and months and months. If a kid is using a toy for more than, I'm going to say like 3 months, like that's a big win.
It is, yeah, because that doesn't always happen.
Because in this early phase, both of our kids are under 2, and so we're talking like 3 months is a big portion of their life so far.
Yeah.
And so the push toys have been here for like a year, and he still loves them. And then the top favorite is a train, actually, that he has. Same kind of a concept. It's got 2 pieces, which is kind of interesting. So it's got the train part and then like a little caboose, if you will, that's detachable. And so the caboose has a little seat where when he gets big enough, he can sit on it and like hold on and propel himself if he wants to. He's still not big enough for that. So you can pop the caboose off, and he can just hold on to the handles on top of the train.
Yeah.
But then the train has like 30 different buttons and numbers.
Oh, yeah.
It has like a little phone pad with a little telephone thing, and he can punch in numbers. And it's got this kind of intricate, I'm actually kind of surprised, like block system where like the caboose, it has like a little storage compartment, and it holds a bunch of blocks with letters and words that correspond to the letters in it to help them learn the alphabet and words. And it has this thing where you plug it into the side of the train, and it reads the toy, the block, and it's like W is for whale, or whatever it is, and then it talks about that and just repeats it. So like these toys are on steroids. Like if anybody has kids, you know this. I'm not bringing you breaking news on that front. And like a lot of toys are going to have a lot of components to it, and I totally get it because it keeps it fresh, keeps them interacting with different things. But the main thing that he loves the most about it is literally just the aspect of pushing it around. Yeah, loves doing laps around the living room, the kitchen, the dining room, all throughout the house. And then my personal favorite pastime with my son is we got 2 push toys, and we just race each other around the house. And it's really difficult as an adult because you got to get way down over there. You can't do it like on your butt. You can't do it on your knees. We have hardwood, so that just hurts. Yeah. Maybe if you have carpet. And so I've got to stand and then like bend over 90 degrees or more than 90 degrees and like get down to that level. But then we just race all around the house, and it's a lot of fun, and we bang into each other and, kind of cause crashes, and, it's kind of like a fun racing thing. So I'm all about the push toys. What kind of favorites do you guys have, Jesse?
Yeah, so on the subject of push toys, you mentioned a train. We've got one of those too. Ours is a Thomas the Tank Engine brand, which is kind of cool for me personally because that was one of my favorite characters when I was David's age.
Yeah.
So we've got a Thomas the Tank Engine that you can sit on and still kind of push around with your feet, and David's finally at that age where he can do that, and he's kind of interested in it. And it's also got different components. It's got 2 buttons on the handles. One plays a voice of Thomas saying, "I'm Thomas, let's go." And then the other one's got kind of a groovy little 70s rock kind of theme song. I don't remember the Thomas the Tank Engine theme song, so maybe that was it. But yeah, exactly. But you can also get off the tank engine, open up the seat, and it turns into a downward ramp, and you've got 2 little miniature tank engine toys that you can race down the ramp. So he really enjoys that, and then he'll take his other car toys and race those down the ramp as well. So it's also got the kind of the interactive aspects to it. On a more lo-fi situation with the push toys, I want to bring up the brand Melissa and Doug. Parents our age, kind of in that 29 to early 30s range, you've probably heard of Melissa and Doug, and you've probably seen it, everywhere from Target to Bye Bye Baby to Amazon, wherever you go, it's there. It's one of the trendy brands right now. But they make some great push and pull toys. David's got a toy lawnmower from Melissa and Doug. That's the blades are actually 3 like fake wooden alligators.
Yes,
I
remember.
Yeah, the cool thing about the brand is that they're like wooden toys. Like they're very simple, kind of old fashioned, but they're bright and colorful, and they've got fun characters on them. He's also got one that's a frog that you pull behind you, kind of on a leash. And it kind of claps and makes noise. And that's the fun thing about it, is that it's a character. It makes noise. You can kind of interact with it. The thing I love so much about push toys is that when kids are at that stage where they're learning to walk, it's a great way for them to have something to lean on while they practice walking, but they're also kind of building confidence. Hey, look at me, look what I can do at the same time.
Those legs up, building that leg muscle.
Exactly, yeah. They're not skipping leg day with these things.
That's right.
And it feels like play, too. Like, so it doesn't feel like, sometimes when you're teaching kids to do something, you're like kind of, it's not putting pressure on them, but when there's no game or toy or play attached to it, sometimes it can be harder for it to stick with them. Yeah. So these toys are, push toys are a great way, I think, to kind of get in the groove with that.
Mm-hmm.
Let me pull up my list here.
Yeah, I can take it to the next.
Yeah, sure. Let's
set after that, a musical break, and then we'll go back. So another great way that I've found to find good toys is look at things that they're interacting with outside of your house. So like you don't have to just pick and choose and guess necessarily. Maybe early on get a couple toys, get your kind of library of toys going a little bit. But then as you're at friends' houses, at school, daycare, at church, Sunday school, daycare, we go to this really cool indoor playground, which has a bunch of different toys there, which has been like a free testing ground. I mean, it's not free to go, but like essentially it's a free testing ground for the toys.
Yeah.
We get to pilot them with Noah essentially. And if we like them, then we go and we get them, or we get something similar to them. So we've gotten a lot of really good ones, especially of late for him. And in particular, his new favorite is the kitchen set.
Uh-huh.
And so there's a bunch of different varieties out there. I don't think anyone is any necessarily better than the other. Just any of them are pretty good. But basically, it's got like the stove with a fridge kind of a thing and a microwave. And then you have all kinds of doors that go along with it, opening and closing the fridge. There's cabinets. There's pots and pans that go on the stove that they can play with. Usually utensils and spoons and plates, a little teacup set. All kinds of things, and then some of them, like the slightly more sophisticated or perhaps newer ones, like the knobs, when you turn them, they click, or they can even like actually be a timer, I've seen on some of them, and so that just adds kind of another fun element because it's like a satisfying sensory interactive point, and so he is just nuts about the kitchen set whenever he would go play at a place that had one, and so we finally got one ourselves. And then like a quick tie-in with the whole like pilot testing elsewhere is trying to look secondhand. And, just obviously this is a good tip just for being thrifty in general, but a lot of other people have kids, even people you don't know. So something that's just kind of newer these days, I don't want to assume everyone does the same thing that I do, but my wife in particular, I'll give her a shout out. Like she's a part of a lot of neighborhood groups on like Facebook and things, and also some mom groups on Facebook and things of that nature. And there are even what I understand very robust what are called yard sale groups.
Oh yeah,
where people will just post things that they're gonna get rid of, but you don't want to have a yard sale. And like it feels like you don't even need them anymore because you can just get rid of stuff at whim almost on Facebook. So join or look out for these kinds of neighborhood groups. You don't have to just join a rando group. You can join one for your neighborhood usually or your community.
Yeah. And
people will post all of the toys that they're getting rid of that they don't want anymore, and they will sell them at ridiculously cheap prices because they just want them out of their houses. And they're trying to make a little bit of a buck, but you can get, for example, like a kitchen set new is probably like $75 or something. And I'm not saying that's not a good investment because it's a big toy and there's a lot of things that you can do with it and it's good play. But we got a kitchen set secondhand for like $20.
Nice.
And you just go and you pick it up and then it's yours and you're good to go. And you can see it and you go look at it and all that kind of good stuff. So something that's like a big purchase, I would say get your eye on it and then just kind of eagle eye it. Because it's a really good way to kind of pick up some stuff. So kitchen set's been really big. I'm going to say musical instruments of varying types.
We've got several of those.
It just depends on what they're into. When he was a little kid, it's like the little piano thing, and he's kind of hitting it, and he enjoyed kind of playing with that to varying degrees. I'll say he's starting to get a little bit more interested into some of the musical toys, and the ones that he really is liking right now are ones that he can move around with. And so, again, at this indoor play place, we saw a Melissa and Doug set, actually, that had like I think they call it like a noise-making musical set.
Yeah.
And we didn't get the set yet, because I'm just going to caution you guys, like, we love these toys for him, but we love that he gets to play with them elsewhere because they're very loud, obviously. So I'm a little, on the fence about like really noisy toys. And so just because he's going to keep banging them. So one in particular is literal cymbals, and they're so cute, little tiny baby cymbals, and he just holds them in his hands and he bangs them around and he walks around like the monkey with the cymbals, and it's adorable. Macarinas they had in this thing, so he's just like shaking the Macarinas, but he gets like full movement when he's with them, so he doesn't have to sit and engage. So he really been enjoying those, but I'm not sure if I can pull the trigger on buying and bringing those into my house. So this kind of dovetails into the what am I not liking, and it's usually things that are very loud and noisy. And I know that noise comes along with a lot of the best toys. Like the train that I mentioned, it can go on for what feels like 10 minutes before it will automatically shut off. And so most of the time I have to shut it off myself if I want any peace and quiet. And so it's kind of like a constant game with these toys where if your kid's interacting with them, you just kind of let it go. And then as soon as they maybe move away from it, you kind of move over to the toy and just subtly turn it off. Right? So anything like that is a big catch-22. You can't really live without it because most toys have some kind of noise component, and that's kind of what gets the kids interested. But, be sharp and handy with turning it on and off. And then the other problem, of course, is then when you turn it off, the kid comes back to it and they want to play with it. And they're like, why isn't it working? And then they get mad and you have to run over there and turn it back on again.
Just wait until they learn how to turn these things on themselves.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, it gets fun.
I'm sure we're getting there very soon. But, we're in that sweet spot where he's not quite there yet. Of always knowing, like he knows where the button is, but he doesn't think about it all the time, and he doesn't use it all the time. So I think VTech toys are like a love-hate relationship in a strong way, because those VTech is known for the noise-making, sound-making type toys. And that was the one that I talked about toward the beginning, like the farmhouse with like the buttons and the noises, and like that one, it'll just rotate for like 30 seconds. Sometimes it'll rotate for like 3 minutes. Sometimes it'll rotate for what feels like 5 hours. And you just got to watch out for whatever works. So I'm kind of on the fence on not just the musical toys, because like musical toys where they just interact and create the noise, I think can be fine, but then the ones that just cycle endlessly are like a big drain. Yeah,
I've so we've got 2 VTech toys in the house that I do, like you said, have a love-hate relationship with. The first set is a pair of remote control race cars.
Nice.
They have a few programmed sort of phrases that they'll say, like, I'm race car number 2. I can go really, really fast.
Oh my God. My parents, my son's grandparents have one that's like an ambulance, and it always has a catchphrase. It's like, I'm Alex. I'm an active ambulance. And it's just like, what's an inactive ambulance? Like, I would not want to meet that.
So active ambulance, is he saying that there's someone with an emergency inside of him at that moment?
Maybe. Anytime
That's a little dark.
Anytime you push the button, he's obviously activated. And so he's having, he's going around, and there's a whole slew of those VTech little tiny toys, and they all have like a name and like an adjective that goes along with it. Like, I'm Tommy the tow truck, or, I'm
exactly.
totally awesome tow truck, whatever it is.
Yeah, but the thing with these toys is the remotes don't always work. I mean, VTech is a big brand, but for a big brand, you think they'd be a little more reliable. Like, the problem I've found is that David loves to play with these things, but he'll pick up the remote and try and make it go forward and backward. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. And, I don't know. It feels like it's maybe there's a better way to play with some toy cars. Like, he's got some other toy cars that are these little, they've got like dinosaur shapes on them and stuff. They're all, I don't know, it looks like something out of Power Rangers or something like that. But those are really fun because I play with that with him, and we'll make the monster noises and stuff. And that's what he really loves, is making them kind of bite each other and make the monster sounds. The other VTech toy we have is, it's called, I think, like a, pause for 1 second. I'm going to look up the name of this because I was just looking at it. Toddler Zoo, VTech Zoo. Learn and Dance. Another VTech toy that we have is the VTech Learn and Dance Interactive Zoo. This is a thing that, it'll play a series of songs. There's like 4 different buttons that you can hit that'll bring up a different animal's song, like I'm a very tall giraffe, and none of these songs ever rhyme. Like, they're very, that's why it kind of bugs me, is that like, I don't know,
what are you rhyming giraffe with?
I don't know.
I guess full
giraffe, have a laugh.
Hey, there you
know,
go.
I made a gaffe. I don't know, but
Ooh, nice.
See, there's options. But anyway, so these VTech toys, he loves them because he likes to kind of turn them on and make the monkey dance, because there's like a little plastic monkey that'll rotate when you rotate the joystick, and it'll play different songs, and it's kind of fun. But it will just play and play and play. And like you said, once you stop playing with these toys, there's like a trigger where after a minute of inactivity, it'll play another song because it wants the kid to come back and interact with it some more. So that, we find ourselves at the end of the night like going back through his toy zone and like turning off all the toys one after the other so they stop singing their ingratiating songs at us. But as annoying as these things can be, they're fun for the kids, so at the end of the day, you really can't go wrong. I want to go back really quickly to the musical instruments that you were talking about, because there's a few recommendations I wanted to make. There is a brand called, I think it's just called B Toys. You can find this at Target. It's called the Parum Pum Pum Drum.
That's cool.
Set. And it's one drum. It comes with two kind of fun little drumsticks with some cool textures on them. And then there's like 4 toys inside of the drum. So you take off the drum head, which is just a plastic transparent drum head.
Yeah.
And then it's got like basically 3 little noise makers in it. Some bells, a tambourine, and then kind of a maraca thing. And they're shaped like A, B, and C. But they're also shaped like animals. Like A for ant. It's like a little ant with long legs. And B for bee. It's a bee. And then C is a caterpillar. So it kind of works out. And they all make different noises. So David really enjoys playing with that. So the B Toys Parum Pum Pum, you can find it for $20 at Target. He actually also has one at daycare that he really loves.
Nice.
There's also the little musician sort of, it's like a mini grand piano, like plastic keyboard piano. That's a lot of fun because it'll play demo songs, but you can also bang on it and kind of play your own songs. So he loves playing with it. I know a little piano, so I'll sit with him and actually play some real songs on it sometimes.
Hey, there you go.
And then he just likes making the sound effects on it. It's a fun way to kind of introduce your kids to music. Obviously, you can get like a toy xylophone anywhere. Those are always a really good go-to. He's also got fun, I don't know the brand name of this thing, but it's just called electronic drum mat or electronic drummer mat. But it's a plastic mat. There's pictures of a drum set on it, and each thing that you hit with your hand or your foot, because he loves to just dance on the thing, it'll make the drum sound. So you're having like a little drum solo every time.
Yeah, like a little piano mat. That
exactly.
It's got the keys on it, but this one has drum set instead.
Yeah, it's like that Tom Hanks scene from Big where you jump from one to the other. That's kind of what he's doing there. So
nice.
Very noisy. Like Brandon said, you're going to have a lot of sounds in your house once you start investing in musical instrument toys. But as your kid gets older, it's probably a really good way to kind of introduce them to music if you think that they're going to have a musical inclination. So those are just a few of my favorites. We'll include a few links in the show notes as well. All right. I think that's
pretty good. If we had enough, we've got like only a few minutes, so I don't know if we want to do one last little bit or not.
Yeah, we can do one last little bit.
Okay.
All right. And go.
So one of the newer things that we've been kind of working through as well that I did want to mention here as we're kind of wrapping up is obviously, our son's getting, a year and a half, your son's about 2 years, and so they're starting to be able to interact with a little bit more variety of toys and toys that they can kind of interact with you, the parents, that are kind of like the imaginary play type stuff or the like faux real life situation type toys. And so that may sound weird, but what I'm thinking of is I mentioned with the kitchen set, it has like a teacup set. And so we, for the first time, played like having tea the other day. And it's a kind of a thing that, you're like, oh, I have a son. Why am I playing tea with him? But like, first of all, he doesn't really get that. Yeah. So he just gets fun, and it can be a lot of fun, and was a lot of fun for us to sit out and like have like a little blanket inside the house, and we get the teacups, and everyone gets one, and we get the teapot, and we even fill it up with water, and you just kind of go around and be like, oh, do you want some? And you pour it into the cup, and then my son loves water, so he just drinks it and drinks it and drinks it, and then you give some to mommy and daddy, and then it was really cute because we taught him to do like the clinking of the cups. Oh, fun. And so we would like pour everybody would take a sip, and then we'd do like clink, and then I would like, mash cups with my wife, and then he picked it up after like 2 seconds. And so it's like just a neat way to get them to interact with different things that they're going to want to learn how to do. I mean, clinking of glasses. I don't know how useful that is in life. It's fun, but the patience to drink out of the cup, waiting his turn, asking for it, whatever it is. And so it's not
skill building.
Yeah, it's skill building. It's not like a girly toy. And then another one is that my wife finally brought out like an old baby doll that she had growing up that that we kind of gave to him to try to play with. And it was, kind of hit and miss off the bat. We kind of hugged it and was like, oh, this is interesting. And then he just kind of put it aside and hasn't quite necessarily gone back to it yet. But another thing that you think about it being like, for a girl or not, but it's just really like about the skills, I think, and just seeing kind of what they might be interested in. And I was looking up in advance of our 18-month appointment, which is coming up very soon. And one of the things on there is around like playing with dolls, because obviously it's like a human type toy, and so they kind of can think about what do they do with the doll, and so it's not about it being a girl or a boy toy. It's about maybe they will take care of the toy, they will feed the doll, they will put it to bed, whatever it is, and like those kind of life skills. So there's something that's been a little more interesting of late.
I mean, here's my take on it. Don't dads do those things too? Like, is it just a girl thing to hold a baby? I mean, here at Dadsplaining, we're all about getting dads more involved and more kind of intentional in what they do as a parent. And I mean, I don't know. I don't see anything wrong with that. If you're teaching a kid to be caring and compassionate with a smaller human being, I mean, what's the downside there? So I don't know.
Jesse with the mic drop at the end.
I mean, boom, I would drop the mic, but it's on a stand here and I think I'd break it. But I mean, that's just my take on it. Like, it's a little early to kind of push your kid in a certain direction with toys because every kid is going to have different interests. Just, get them something that'll teach them something and kind of see what they play with. And if they don't play with it, and that's the other thing, like you said, going with the yard sales and stuff, try not to spend too much money on this stuff because at the end of the day, they're just going to have more fun with the box than they are with the toy anyway. So, just try different things, do what works, and, don't take it too seriously.
Nailed it.
All right. Quick music break. Oh, I'm going to put him on hold for just a minute. Bear with us, guys. Hey, is this JJ? Hi, good morning. This is Jesse. How are you? Awesome. I'm doing great. I'm going to put you on hold for just a few minutes. We're wrapping up our previous episode, and then we're going to do a little intro for you. And then I'm going to kind of turn on your microphone, and we'll kind of get started with the interview. Did you see the email? You did see the email I sent over last night with kind of the prep questions. Awesome. Yeah. Okay. Do you have any questions for us before we get started? Okay. Awesome. Yeah. So, I mean, we're very sort of casual with this. We'll, Brandon, my co-host, and I will kind of bounce back and forth asking you some questions, and we'll kind of let you take the lead with the content that you want to talk about because obviously we haven't had a chance to read the book. We know what it's about, but we'll kind of prompt you with little questions here and there. The only rule is anything that you can't say on, primetime TV as far as curse words, try and avoid. Obviously, we can edit, but that's kind of being a family-friendly podcast. I don't think we're going to have that problem anyway. But, yeah, exactly. So, like I said, I'm going to put you on hold for just a couple minutes, and I'll give you a heads up before we start your portion. Thanks. Just a moment. JJ, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, great. I just wanted to test your line there. Okay, we'll be with you in just a moment. All right, so his line is off. All right, I'll wrap this up and then we'll get started on the next one.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll do it for this week's episode of Dadsplaining. Glad that you guys stuck around with us for this chat about toys. Brandon, in between this week and next week, if our listeners want to get in touch with us with questions, suggestions, tips, or just a chat, where can they find us?
Please like or follow along with us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at Dadsplaining Podcast. You can see all of our live streams on Facebook Live. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, we're going to try to get the same thing going on Twitter. So keep a lookout for that. And then you can get this episode every single week anywhere you get your podcasts.
Exactly. And, do us a favor. If you enjoy the show, if you're getting something out of it, leave us a rating on Apple. Excuse me. Leave us a rating on Apple Podcasts. Leave us a review if you're so inclined to. We would greatly appreciate it. And of course, we'd be happy to read that review and give you some credit on air. One little tip that I wanted to leave you guys with comes from our listener, Chris Rich, up in, I want to say, Vancouver, Canada. We posted this question about what toys would you recommend to our Facebook group, Dadsplaining, a fatherhood group. And he says, the best toy I picked up has been the Mac Ride. This is a seat extension for your bike. If you're the type who likes to bicycle, you can stick your toddler in it. He loves going out for rides around town or hitting the trails. It's been so much fun for the both of us and always provides some great bonding time. He also loves his Globber scooter, which, Brandon, I think you looked this up, and it's like it's a toddler size or kid size scooter, right?
Yeah, like the old Razor scooter, but it's got 2 wheels in front instead of 1, so that extra stability for the really little young kids. But they are super popular. I see them all over the place.
Yeah, he says his son just got it for his second birthday, and he wants to ride it all the time. I mean, and wow, second birthday. Chris has sent us some videos over the past year of his kid as he's growing up, and this kid is going to be an athlete, I swear. Like, the first thing he sent us was at 16 months old, he's shooting hoops in the living room. I mean, holy cow. Like, I think maybe Michael Jordan and no one else does that at 16 months old. So thanks, Chris, for the recommendation. And that'll do it. Thanks for sticking with us, guys. If you are watching via Facebook Live, stay tuned because we are going to go right into recording our next episode. And if you're just listening on your preferred podcasting app, check back with us this coming Monday, where we're going to have an interview with author JJ Wenrich to talk about his book, Teaching Kids to Buy Stocks. This is going to be a really interesting conversation about financial literacy and how to teach your kids to manage their money. I mean, that's something that I struggle with as a 29-year-old fully grown man. So we'll have a lot of fun with that. So until next time, I'm Jesse.
And I'm Brandon.
And hold one second. I forgot to grab a dad joke.
Oh, that's all right.
All right.
We also got the next episode. We need all the dad jokes.
Oh, my goodness. Dad joke. And hey, Brandon, did you hear about the incredibly average Greek philosopher?
No.
His name was Mediocrities. Sorry, guys. All right, we'll see you next time. All right, play it out. Okay. And yeah, we'll just roll right into the next one. Hang on, notifications. Okay. All right, just a note for myself on the recording file. This is the beginning of episode 51, Teaching Your Kids About Stocks. You're tuned in to Dadsplaining, a weekly chronicle of all the weirdest, messiest, grossest, and funniest parts of fatherhood, hosted by two first-time dads. I'm Jesse.
And I'm Brandon.
And, hold on one second. Let me put them up. Hey, JJ, quick question for you. How do you pronounce your last name?
You nailed it. Wenrich.
Wenrich. Awesome. Okay, I'll be right with you. And this week, we have a very special interview for you guys. We are going to be talking with author JJ Wenrich. He has written a book called Teaching Your Kids to Buy Stocks, or I think just Teaching Kids to Buy Stocks. We're going to get into a lot of interesting financial topics, which we have never covered here on Dadsplaining. So I'm really excited about it. But before we get into it, Brandon, if our listeners want to get in touch with us, where can they find us?
Please give us a like or a follow on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at Dadsplaining Podcast. You can check out our Facebook live stream every week from our page there. And then we are working actively to get something similar set up on Twitter, so stay tuned for that as well. You want to reach us directly, do it at dadsplainingpodcast@gmail.com. And then you can check out this episode and every episode every week anywhere you get your podcasts.
That's interesting. Okay. All right, so we are on the line with JJ Wenrich. JJ, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. How's it going?
We're doing great. Thanks for asking. Thanks for coming on with us. So we found JJ actually through his wife, Jody, who also runs her own brand, I believe called the Salty Christian Company, which is a really fun Instagram account if you guys want to look that up. Jody reached out to us and having listened to the podcast, thought that JJ's book would be a good fit, and we looked into it, and it really is a great fit because this is something that we've never covered on this podcast before. Obviously, our kids are not yet 2 years old, so there may be a little little young to kind of learn about money, but as you might find out in this episode, you're never really too young. So, JJ, my first question for you, before we get into the book, is just tell us a little bit about your family.
Happy to. And thanks so much for having me. And I always look good when Jody's the first people that folks come across. She definitely makes me look good. So, I really appreciate being on the air. Jody and I have 3 kids together. They are now 12, 13, and 14. Mm-hmm. And she and I have been together for 18 years. And Alex is 28, and she had Alex when she and I met. And so that's been our family portfolio, as we like to call it. But Jody and I met as young financial advisors. I was right out of school. She's 6 years older than me, and we built our own practice together, helping families with their finances, with investing. I was a bit of a market geek coming out of college. I'd gotten into it at a pretty young age. And as life rolled forward and we started having babies, we started talking to them about money and business and things, not much older than yours are now. I don't know that we were dropping knowledge to them at 2, but we were definitely starting to talk to them about things by 3 and 4. And my career went a different path. Her career went a different path. She decided to start staying home with the kids as we had 3 babies in 30 months. And mine led me to the road, where I started talking to other financial advisors every day as my clients. And what you saw was the idea for all of this really came from my personal life with my kids and my professional life crossing streams. As I started talking to them about money and eventually the markets, I started telling those stories to other financial professionals. And the stories caught on both with the kids. They started to learn some things. And other financial professionals started to hear how I was doing things with my kids, playing some different games, and that they were learning a lot. And so, both stories caught on. And long story short, I decided to put some of the ideas together, and originally wanted it to be a curriculum, but it turned into a book. And that's where we are today. Yeah.
That's awesome. So let's dig into some of those lessons. So you said age 3, 4, 5 is when you started talking to your kids about money. What concepts are you introducing to them at that stage?
Yeah, at that age, you're really just talking to them that money is a thing, and where it would start. I mean, you really want them to be aware. And if they wanted something, you start to introduce the concept, well, we have to pay for that. Mm-hmm. And it costs a certain amount. And it probably started with just counting and learning numbers, but over time we were really intentional about having conversations about what we were doing. If we were in a store or a restaurant, we would talk about, this is a business and we're going to pay this much for our dinner or for your toy. And so we just try to keep it relative to their world and talk to them about money and business. And over time, that conversation evolved into some deeper things. Mm-hmm. But it really starts at a young age of just talking to your kids about money.
That's really cool. So I mentioned that my son is about 22 months old, and when we take him into the grocery store, there are, here where we are in the South in the United States, there are Kroger grocery stores, and other stores do this too, but they have free fruit stands for kids where you can pick up a fruit and give it to the kid, and then they can eat it as you're browsing and shopping. The concept that he has not nailed yet at this age is that you can't do that with everything in the store. So if we pick up a bunch of bananas or one of his snacks, he doesn't really understand yet that you can't open that until we've paid for it. So I've said to him in very simple terms, no, we have to give the store the money and leave before we can eat that. I don't think he's getting that yet, but that's kind of the direction I want to move into with him. So JJ, on to the title of your book, Teaching Kids to Buy Stocks. I thought that was really intriguing when I heard that because I don't know much about stocks, but this is something that you are confident that kids can kind of grasp at that age. So on the topic of stocks, kind of at what age do you start talking to kids about this, and where does it start?
I have to give you the second half of the title to really. There's a bit of a hook with that title because people see that. Oh wow, teaching kids to buy stocks. The second half of the title is stories and lessons for grown-ups. And so yeah, it's like, oh, I thought I could just give this to the kids and they would make me rich and then it would be all over.
Child labor.
Yeah, no. Unfortunately, I'm asking you all to read it. But no, it really depends on the child, and I'm not suggesting that we're going to have a bunch of 5-year-olds that are waking up early to actually draw the charts that are on the front of the book or anything. But it's more of helping folks like you, the parents, the moms, the dads, realize that a lot of these things that sound really complicated aren't as complicated as financial people make them. Whatever profession you're in, you're going to speak your own language with your colleagues and with other professionals. But when you try to take that language out to the real world, people don't listen to you. And the problem with financial literacy is, that's language that we all really need to speak. And I don't feel like the message is always getting through as clearly as it could.
I see.
And so my goal, kind of going back to the title and how can you get kids to that level, it's really, my goal is to keep it really simple, funny, and to use your terminology, to dadsplain how it all works. Yeah, and depending on your kids, it depends on the conversation. The way we would start is going back to talking to them about money, is eventually you have a conversation about these businesses that you're transacting with. Whenever you're spending money, there's probably a business associated with it. And you have to say anything to kids 100 times before they're going to hear it. And so you just keep saying it over and over. Eventually you get to the point where you explain some of these companies are quite large. Some of them are quite small. And at some point you have a conversation about public versus private. And that's when you start to get a little bit into the weeds, but some companies are publicly traded and some are not. And whenever you feel like they can understand that, you start to explain that to them, and then you do it again 100 more times. And when they're publicly traded, it's probably something more that they're more likely to have heard of, and you start to have the conversation that means there's a stock associated with it.
Wow. Okay. So your kids at the age that they're at now, sort of the tween teen stage, that's something that they're grasping pretty well, do you think?
Yeah, by now they've grasped it really well. I think they understood the concept of public versus private probably by 6, 7, 8, 5, 6, 7.
Wow. I know I didn't.
They understand it a lot deeper now than they did then, but they start to recognize brands, and that's what you do is you keep it relative to their world. If they're I saw the kids and their cousins sitting on Apple devices. Well, you explain, that's a company.
Yep. Or Disney, all the kid shows. Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect example. Yep.
Okay.
But yeah, you just kind of show them, yes, some of these are publicly traded. What does that mean? It means there's a stock. And that stock is going to move around a lot.
Now, how do I get them to understand that all the different services are doing their own streaming thing now, and it's going to degrade my value of my Netflix subscription to the point where I've got to have 18 different single subscriptions to Disney and Hulu and ESPN and all these other things? How do I stop the madness?
Why is it so expensive to cut the cord?
Exactly. Yeah, right? It was supposed to be cutting, right? But now I'm like
adding.
Enriching the cord without having it, yeah.
No, not the way I thought it was going to go.
Yeah, exactly. So JJ, what kind of responses have you gotten so far from sharing this book with parents? Is it something that they're responding positively to?
Yeah, it's been really great, and it's come from a few different demographics, if you will. The moms and dads a lot of them really have wanted to hand it to their kids, and so they maybe haven't read it as much as they should have. But what we found is that the teens that they've handed it to have really enjoyed the book, even though the stories are definitely written from a parent's point of view. Teens have liked it. The 20-somethings without kids that still have time to read, they've liked it. And then I'm in my 40s. Probably the two most interesting responses I've gotten have been from my dad and my father-in-law. So the other side of the spectrum where they have time to read would be our parents. But my dad, he told me I think I'm going to open up a brokerage account.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess that's a win. After 20 years in the investment business, I convinced my dad to open up a brokerage account.
No
So it only took 20 years.
Right.
My favorite response was my father-in-law. I love him to death, but he's probably said 500 words to me in my 18 years with his daughter.
We know the type.
So typical father-in-law. And he took the book to the library in the town he lives in, and also to his financial advisor, and said, you guys need to buy this book for the library, and you need to buy this book for your clients, and you need to read this book. So I felt like, well, hey,
wow,
even my father-in-law approved.
Great. Yeah, I would definitely say this book should be right up the alley of the people who are Jesse and I's age, in the late 20s, but, even a few years ago, because I'll say that, I didn't know much of anything about financial literacy because you don't really learn about it so much. There's not a great way to learn about it. So a book like this would have been an obvious solution or a great idea of something to have in front of people at that kind of young age where you've got your first job and you're starting to build up to thinking about first car, first house, all those kinds of things. You need money. You need capital. You need some substantial money. And more than just the money and the amount, you need the flexibility and the freedom and the comfort to be able to make big decisions.
Oh, yeah.
So something I'll just say that my wife and I did was, several years ago when we were very early on in our lives and we, were getting married and then kind of merging together, we were thinking, okay, we need to go get a broker and work with some kind of a company to help us out. And we basically went in there and we're like, listen, we don't know what we're doing, but we just know that people who are older, who haven't ever come in and haven't ever gotten financial help always say, man, I wish I'd done it when I was in my 20s. And so we literally said, can you tell us what to do? Because we're in our 20s, so that when we're in our 30s, 40s, and 50s, we can look back and be like, oh, good, we didn't miss the boat. We actually did it right.
Exactly. I don't know if this is specific to our generation or if this is just something that hits people as they reach this stage in their life. But I mean, my dad taught me, he helped me open my first savings account and my first checking account, when I reached about 15, 16. And he kind of taught me the basics, but none of that is taught in schools these days.
Yeah.
And personally, I reached adulthood, getting my first full-time job without a full understanding of what a 401k was, how insurance works, what the heck a deductible is, so you, JJ, you might be speaking to a generation that is not as financially literate maybe as a generation before them, or certainly not as much as they should be. So I love the fact that this book is it's easily digestible, not just by parents, but also adults, like you said, who maybe don't have kids yet, certainly by teenagers. I think that's really cool that teenagers are able to pick up this book and get the concepts and enjoy it as a read. And then older adults too, like you said. I think that you're kind of hitting multiple demographics here who are on all different points in that spectrum of knowing what to do with money. So tell us, for our listeners who are interested in this book, where can they find it?
You can find the book wherever you buy books online, at Amazon or Barnes & Noble, any other retailers like that. And hardback and ebook as well. And then we have a website, teachingkidstobuystocks.com, that has links to all those places, but also has quite a bit of other stuff that we are putting together to just support financial literacy. Like a lot of things, when you start to look for something, you find a lot of it, and there's a lot of great folks doing stuff with financial literacy. And there's a lot of good curriculum for kids when they're really young to teach them about money. And we try to lift those folks up and share it on our website and in our social media.
Fantastic. And for our listeners, we're going to post links to those, to all of that in our show notes as well. And we'll post a link on our social media pages. So JJ, before we let you go today, I had a couple questions for you, just speaking as a parent. We have a lot of listeners who are in the earliest phases of parenthood, who are maybe either expecting their first child or are raising babies and infants and are in that stage. What advice would you give to new parents? Like, what is the one piece of advice that you would want to let every new parent to know?
It's really hard because, like my kids, I like all my advice equally. Maybe that's not completely true, but I'd say there's two ways I'll take that. One is just dad to dad, and one is more financial related. Dad to dad, it'd be as much as possible. Don't worry, be happy.
Nice.
There's a million things to stress out about, and we could do 100 shows about that. But most of them are, when you look back on your life and when your kids are teenagers, you'll look back at how stressful it was when they were little, and you'll think, gosh, I wish I'd have just chilled out a little bit. At least maybe that's just me.
No, that's great. That's great for us where we are.
Yeah, it's easy to stress out, and figuring out ways to not is the best advice I could possibly give. And then on the financial side, it's talk to your kids about money. And just as early as you can, do the things we've talked about today. And if you can, do what you did, and that's start saving early and talk to somebody about how to do that. So I tried to sneak 3 pieces into one there. But that's what I would say.
That's great. And then the last question I'll have for you is, it's A or B. Either A, what was the best advice that you got as a parent, or B, what is something that you wish someone had told you at any point in your parenting, struggles and strifes?
I'd say the best advice I got, and I don't remember who gave it to me, but I remember using it, is to play with your kids. And as much as you can, set everything else aside and play with your kids when you get the chance, and have fun with them and be a kid with them. Because if you ask your kids what they want, that's what they want.
I love that. That's great. We actually just wrapped up an episode about different toys that toddlers are playing with at different phases, and a lot of those are interactive with parents and kids. That's one thing that we're about here at Dadsplaining, is getting dads especially more involved with their kids, whatever phase of life that they're in. And play is such a great way to do that. So that's really awesome advice. So JJ, before we let you go, is there anything else that you would like our listeners to know?
Yeah, I guess maybe the last comment I would say is, it can be intimidating to think about talking to your kids about money, and especially if you don't feel like you know it yourself. And what I would suggest is, you have the skills with whatever you have. You're worthy of having a conversation. Just get started and see where it leads you. If you don't feel like you don't know everything, that's fine. None of us do. Just talk about what you do know, and that'll get the ball rolling.
I love it.
Great.
Yeah, I love it. All right. So I think that's a great place to wrap it up. So once again, guys, this is JJ Wenrich, author of Teaching Kids to Buy Stocks. That's teachingkidstobustocks.com. Great place to get started learning all about this stuff. JJ, it was a pleasure having you on, man. We look forward to reading the book ourselves and staying in touch and seeing where this takes you. So thanks for coming on with us today.
Hey, thanks, guys, so much. Thanks, Brandon. Thanks, Jesse.
Thanks, JJ.
Awesome. All right, we're gonna do a little break. All right, so JJ, I'm gonna go ahead and cut the line now. Thanks a lot, man. This was a really fun interview for us.
Well, thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. Just really appreciate the chance to be on.
Great. And I'm going to send you a link once this show goes live so you can listen along. Feel free to kind of share as you want, and we're going to share your page on all of our pages as well. And let's keep in touch. It might be fun to do a follow-up episode with us maybe, I don't know, a year from now and see if we've been able to kind of apply any of this yet.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. And I'll be sharing it out. And I appreciate all you guys do. I've really enjoyed listening to the podcast.
Awesome,
Great.
man.
Hey, we appreciate it.
Yeah, that means a lot. All right, JJ, I'm going to go ahead and cut it off here. Thank you so much. Have a great day, man.
You too. Take care. Bye.
All right, so we'll just wrap up on our own. I think that was good.
Oh, I enjoyed it.
All right.
I'm not just a host; I'm a listener as well.
Yeah,
it's great.
Yeah, it's good to learn stuff. All right, wrapping up here. We didn't talk about what we want to talk about next week. Do you want to do books like you said? That might be interesting.
Some of the books that we've enjoyed, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah. Okay, we'll do that.
Sure.
All right.
Not boods, boogs. I don't know what a bood is.
I don't know.
Doesn't sound good.
It's what happens when you bomb on stage. You get booed.
There we go.
Yeah. All right, guys. So that'll do it for this week's episode of Dadsplaining. Thanks for sticking along with us. This was a really fun interview. I hope that you guys had some great takeaways from it. Like I said, be sure to check out the show notes for more information on teaching kids to buy stocks. So, Brandon, if our listeners have questions about this episode or any others, or just want to chat with us, where can they find us?
Please give us a like or a follow on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at Dadsplaining Podcast. You can follow our Facebook live streams every week. We're working to get the same thing set up on Twitter, so check that out very soon. And then you can drop a line to us at dadsplainingpodcast@gmail.com. And then this and every episode are going to be available wherever you get your podcasts.
That's right. And don't be afraid to reach out to us, to send us a message. I mean, we are replying weekly to direct messages on our Facebook page, on Instagram, on Twitter. We've also got a parenting group, Dadsplaining, a fatherhood group. Of course, as always, moms are welcome there as well. Great place to swap tips, ask questions, and just chat with other like-minded parents. So, Brandon, what are we talking about next week?
Next week, we're going to talk about books. So we just recently talked about toys and what our kids are interested in. We're going to talk about the different books that they're reading, what they're liking, what they're not liking, what we're not liking, and just kind of delve all into all things literacy.
Awesome. So until next time, I'm Jesse.
And I'm Brandon.
And hey, Brandon, how do you make a waterbed bouncier?
You bounce on it?
No, you add some spring water.
Oh.
That joke comes courtesy of reddit.com/r/daddjokes. Oh,
I've
what?
got one for you.
Hit me.
What do sprinters eat before a race?
I don't know.
Nothing. They fast. Got him.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. We'll catch you next time. Oh, man.
Boom.
That was a great couple episodes there.
It
Everybody
is.
on Facebook, thanks for sticking with us. Drop us, the stream's going to end, but you can continue to post comments. We'll check that out, or just reach out to us with questions, and we'll catch you next time.
Good stuff. Yeah, the old double episode.